With 195 countries in the entire world, not including the dependencies, and constant trading and businesses going back and forth between these nations, it's not surprising that many countries on the planet have a small or major debt. But today, we are going to look at 5 countries that have absolutely no debt, and maybe get a look at how they do it. Hey everybody, how's it going? Dave Walpole here, and welcome to FTD Facts, the channel where we talk about people, cultures, and places from all around the world. Now, today we are looking at the countries, well, the top 5 countries that don't have any debt. Now, keep in mind, we're not going to look at countries like Tuvalu or San Marino or Andorra, because some of these countries, they don't really have a 100% report on their actual debt, and it kind of reads as 0, but it doesn't actually count. Now, keep in mind, some of these 5 countries that we are going to talk about, they might not be a completely out of debt, because I mean, some of the reports were from way back in 2001 or 2013, so we're going off of those reports. Now, before we get into the video, first of all, guys, here on the channel, we take a lot of recommendations from you guys, the viewers. So if you guys really like this sort of stuff, boom, let us know down there in the comment section below of the future stuff that you want to see. And if you just like this video, give it a big thumbs up, because, well, we like to do part 2s and other things. And I mean, we could do other countries that have a low amount of debt. So if you guys want to see stuff like that, just hit those like buttons, because that's, you know, how we know to keep doing this kind of content. So let's get cracking. Let's start looking at the country known as Brunei, or Brunei, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Now, this is a very interesting country because it's on my list of countries that I've been wanting to talk about here on the channel. And at the time of this recording, I just have not gotten around to it yet, but it is one of those ones. So, hey man, also, if you really want us to talk about Brunei, hit that like button. Then I'll know. Yeah. Now, the country itself is located on the island of Borneo, which is the 3rd largest island in the world. Now, this small little country sits along the shoreline of the South China Sea, and for its land, it's completely surrounded by Malaysia. But let's take a look at some of the population for this. Now, it's got a population of 417,200 people as of a 2015 estimate, ranking 175th in the world. Now, its density sits at approximately 72.11 people per kilometer square, with a land size of 5,765 kilometers square, ranking 164th. Now, in order to understand the debt, we should take a look at some other things like GDP when it comes to this country. For example, it sits at 116th in the world when it comes to its gross domestic product by purchasing power parity, which comes in at $33.376 billion. Now, its GDP per capita is approximately $77,699, which basically has this country sit at 5th in the world. And for me, I'm just like, what? That's like... well, I'm not going to lie, I did not expect to see a country for the highest GDP per capita, you know, be in Southeast Asia. I expected it more in Europe, but hey, man, this is what we do here. We learn. But why does this country have no debt? Well, first of all, let's take a look at what they produce, because for Brunei, they are the 3rd largest oil producers in all of Southeast Asia, producing approximately 180,000 barrels per day. And as for liquid natural gas, they actually rank at 9th in the world and make a lot of money off of that. Now, for their country in revenue, they make approximately $10.49 billion. And as for their expenses, they come in at approximately 10.43, at least in 2010. And basically, because this country doesn't need to borrow money for its growth from other countries, it can do its own banking. And in 2014, it was reported from multiple sources that the debt for this country was absolute 0. Up next, we got Liechtenstein. Now, it's located in the very center of Central Europe, in between Switzerland and Austria. And guys, it's a really small country. It's nuts. It's pretty crazy. Now, the population for this country sits at 38,111 people, ranking 190th in the world. It has a density of 227 people per kilometer square, ranking 57th, and a land size of only 161 kilometers square, making it rank 191st. And as for the GDP, it sits at $5.3 billion, which has it rank 149th, but as for its per capita GDP, they have approximately 98,432, which makes it come in at 2nd in the world. Liechtenstein has got some moolah. And you may be wondering how a country with limited resources can actually achieve this. Well, this is because the country has more companies registered than its actual population. And back in 2001, it stated that it actually had no debt. However, by 2011, some things might have changed since then, because the revenue for that year stated that they made $1.29 billion, while their expenses came in at $1.372 billion. And a big part of what makes Liechtenstein so profitable is its research and development sector, which makes up 32% of the revenue for the entire country. There are other sectors like banking, finance, and trade, but keep in mind, 51% of the labor force are all considered foreigners coming from European countries, commuting every single day from countries like Switzerland, Austria, or Germany. Also, one beneficial thing for this country is it actually doesn't really have to spend money on a military. It's got Switzerland and Austria that pretty much back it up. And for this country, they actually don't even own their own form of currency, as they use the Swiss franc. Coming up next, we got Macau, located right next to Hong Kong. And like Hong Kong, it's not really actually a part of China, although it kind of is. It's pretty much kind of doing its own thing. And although much smaller than Hong Kong, like Hong Kong, people still debate whether or not it's classified as a country. But however, its official designation is Macau Special Administration Region of the People's Republic of China, which is an autonomous territory for the country. And actually, one thing that makes it its kind of own country is that you still need a passport to cross over into the border and enter the country. So I would classify it as a country. But as for Macau, it's got a population of 650,900 people as of a 2016 census, with a density of 21,411 people per square kilometer, which makes this country rank #1 in the entire world for the country with the most amount of people within a square kilometer. It's nuts. And the reason for this is because its land size sits at 95th in the world, being approximately 115.3 kilometers square. Now, in 2014, it was reported that Macau had zero debt. But how do they achieve this? Well, it's actually quite fascinating. The reason for this is Macau is considered gambling capital of the world, and it has had the largest gaming revenue since 2006 out of any country in the world. It is also extremely heavily dependent on its tourism, and as a matter of fact, with those two combined, it makes up 50% of the total GDP. And as for the total GDP, it comes in at 65,732 billion, ranking 103rd in the world. As well, when it comes to the gambling and the tourism revenue, well, it makes up 70% of the government revenue. And in 2012, the government revenue for Macau was at $16.95 billion, and the government expenses of that same year were only $6.934 billion. As for Macau's currency, it's completely backed up by foreign exchange revenues, which is actually the Hong Kong dollar. As well, when it comes to banking, it's considered a tax haven, meaning that there is no foreign exchange rates, and because of that, the country has 5 of the top 500 commercial banks in the world. Now finally, let's move over and look at a little tiny small island known as Niue. Located east of Australia in between the Cook Islands and Fiji in the South Pacific Ocean, it only has approximately 261 kilometers square with a population of 1,624 people. And it is one small little remote island. It's fascinating. And as for its population, in 2016, it was ranked approximately 231st in the world with a population density of 5.35 people per square kilometer. Now, this country may be small, but it does have at least $10 million in GDP as of a 2013 estimate. But one lucky thing for this country, it's been somewhat heavily allied with New Zealand, using not only its currency, but also fighting along New Zealand in the world wars. And although we may think of this country as a very small, kind of insignificant island, one thing that's really fascinating about this country is it was the first country ever in the entire world to actually give free Wi-Fi internet to its citizens, and that happened in 2003. Now, the two biggest sectors for money for this country are agriculture and, believe it or not, postage stamps and tourism for the visitors. It's also been said that the country does go over its revenue, but fortunately, it's aided by New Zealand, which gives government grants to supplement these expenses. And in 2015, the CIA World Factbook stated that it had a revenue of $15.07 million, while only spending approximately $16.33 million. Moving right along, let's take a look at South Sudan, which is a rather new country in the big world today. Now, the reason I picked this one is because it's a rather interesting position of why this country has no debt. Now, first of all, it's a country that is located on the African continent, obviously south of Sudan. And as of a 2016 estimate, it has a population of 12,230,730 people, with approximately 13.33 people per square kilometer. Now, as for its land size, it comes in at 619,745 kilometers square. And as for money, let's take a quick peek, because as for its GDP, it comes in at approximately $20.038 billion. And this is where it gets rough, because for the per capita GDP, it's approximately $1,525 per person. It's very low. Now, the country makes its money because it's considered to have the third largest oil fields in the sub-Saharan region. But the big problem with this country is, since it became its own nation in 2001, which makes South Sudan a rather new country in the big world today, the problem is they haven't reached an agreement on splitting the oil between their country and Sudan, which is to the north. The country itself also doesn't have sufficient infrastructure and has the highest maternal mortality rate in the world, at least in 2011. And one of the problems with the debt of why this country sits at zero is because between Sudan and South Sudan, the debt is somewhere between around 38 billion. And some portions of this money is owed to the World Bank, but most of this money comes from other private investors and other funders, which makes it difficult to determine what the actual debt for this country is. So there you have it, guys. That is a look at some of the top 5 countries that have no debt, or are considered to have no debt in the world that we know. My name is Dave Wapple, and thank you guys for tuning in and learning with us. I hope you guys really liked this video, and again, if you liked it, give it a big like button, because, you know, then we know that this is the kind of stuff that you guys really want to see more of. On top of that, guys, if it's your first time here, hit that subscribe button and that bell notification so you know to get new videos from us all the time, because we're uploading pretty much constantly, so we've always got some fresh stuff for you guys to check out. Also, be sure to check out our other videos as well, because it's really cool stuff. You can also hit me up on Instagram. Links down there in the description box below. And until then, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. Okay? Cool. Bye. So you made it to the end of an FTD Facts video. Awesome. Fantastic. Well, here's some other videos that you guys can check out if you guys would like, because we've talked about countries, we've talked about people, we've talked about places, and, you know, you'll feel really good about the knowledge that you learn from these videos, because, you know, you can just impress your friends and you just feel well-rounded that you know more about the world. Until next time, guys, we'll see you later. Have a good one.